Well, hello there. This is Trevor Grimshaw speaking to you from the University of Bath in the UK. And I'd just like to take a few minutes to tell you about our CPD approach for English as a medium of instruction, or EMI. So here am I. I'm an associate professor in international language education. I've been at Bath for nearly 20 years. And I'm the director of studies of our masters in EMI. And I've spent the last 2 or 3 years developing the courses for that and spreading the word about our EMI provision at the University of Bath. Okay, let me introduce the team very briefly. This is part one of 2 presentations. So you're going to see Dr. Samantha Curl, my colleague, speaking to you very shortly also about research in EMI and how that can be applied to CPD activities. We have a full team of 9 people engaged in the area of international language education. We work within the Language and Educational Practices Research Cluster. And very briefly, for example, we have Dr. Gail Forey, who has over 20 years of experience in Hong Kong and East Asia, and other years of experience in other contexts, but researching and teaching, carrying out teacher development activities in the area of EMI. Similarly, Professor Xiaolan Kurt Christiansen, who works in the area of bilingual education and bilingual language policy. Dr. Adam Soruch, also publishing quite regularly in the area of EMI. He's interested in the student experience, learner strategies, and that kind of aspect of the EMI world. Dr. Reka Rakein Jablonkai, who works in the area of intercultural communication, discourse, in particular corpus linguistics. Dr. Hugo Santiago Sanchez, or Santi, whose specialism is teacher language awareness, and so he's published in areas such as teachers' use of grammar in the classroom and their awareness of grammar when teaching through the medium of English. Dr. Janina Ivanits, who works in the area of second language acquisition, in particular motivation, but also engaged in projects on EMI. And Dr. Viola Vigand, who's been working with me recently on the course development for our EMI units. Okay, so bringing with us a wide range of experience. These people are from contexts as diverse as Turkey, as Hungary, as Poland, Germany, Argentina, and of course the UK, Denmark as well. So yeah, quite a wide range of experience amongst the team. Okay, and so we work in the areas of teaching English to speakers of other languages and also English as a medium of instruction. And we regard these as branches of international language education. The English as a medium of instruction being perhaps the less well-known and the less established of those 2 branches. And I personally see it as an emerging discipline, an emerging profession. A lot of people are still not familiar with the term EMI, but I believe that in the next few years it's going to be much more established, and it will become a career path in itself. And so we can understand why so many people are concerned about continuing professional development in this burgeoning area. And one way of looking at the relationship between TESOL and EMI is to think of it in terms of the kind of people who do it. And it seems to me that there are people coming from at least two major backgrounds. There are those who have a background in language education, who tend to be from TESOL and applied linguistics. But of course, and this is a much larger number of people who are subject teachers who teach content, academic content in the areas of science, maths, history, social science, art, whatever, and at various levels, everything from preschool up until postdoctoral level work is being done in the area of EMI. And these people bring distinct skills and knowledge to the experience. So people who come with a background in language education tend to be quite skilled in analyzing language and literacies. But I don't want to overgeneralize, but there is a tendency for people with that background not to have disciplinary knowledge, and perhaps not to know so much about the disciplines of science or engineering or medicine. So therefore not very aware of literacy, the reading and writing of the specialist literature in those areas. In contrast, people who are subject teachers, teachers of academic content, are clearly experts as in their disciplinary area, in their subject area, and they have, of course, appropriate literacy. They are successful as educators in their field. But this is often intuitive to them. It's something that they have learnt in the process of becoming a science educator or a mathematician or something like that. Okay, so they may not be accustomed, and I stress may not be accustomed to identifying or explaining or teaching about this kind of literacy or this kind of language, the language of science, to their students, or certainly not through the medium of English. So this is the challenge that faces us in the area of EMI. Just to give you some kind of background to our department, we teach a wide range of courses at postgraduate level, everything from a general program in education through to TESOL. Our most recent program is the Masters in EMI, MA EMI. We also have two doctoral programs, EdD and PhD, and so on. And these are delivered in a variety of forms, full, part-time, distance, depending on the professional needs of people. And of course, associated with these programs, we have a range of CPD activities. So units of study which were developed in these areas. So our key principle is context appropriate methodology and curriculum. Now, what I mean by that is that our team, our teaching team, believe that when we approach a teacher education environment, a place where people are doing CPD for EMI or whatever, we first of all take into account the characteristics, the features of that environment. It's very common to have a situation where people from Western universities are telling people in other parts of the world, this is how to do such and such. This is how to educate people. This is how to teach language. This is how to use language. Okay, we do not approach things in that way. We start with what people are doing in the context, and we look at ways of building upon that. We are not seeking to change people's national curriculum to impose a particular methodology, certainly not. What we want to do is to work with people, to collaborate with people, and help them to figure out the best way of teaching and the best way of presenting the materials in their teaching situation, their pedagogical situation. So let me tell you a bit about these units of study that we have for EMI at the University of Bath. Basically, we have 4 of them. And the first one is teaching and assessing in EMI. This covers a wide range of topics, but in particular, we can point out, for example, the different models of English as a medium of instruction. EMI is certainly not one method or even one approach. There are lots of different ways of doing it. And I think one thing that we would like people to do is to explore the different approaches to EMI and choose the most appropriate one to suit their context. We look at language conscious teaching strategies, so ways of presenting knowledge, ways of scaffolding information, efficient ways of communicating subject knowledge through the medium of English. And that includes the disciplinary literacies side of things. And we pay a lot of attention to the developing of speaking and writing, the development of speaking and writing in EMI, because of course this is hugely important for learners in many EMI contexts. Assessment for this unit is by portfolio, so not by a traditional essay or something like that. No, what the students do is that they develop a folder, a portfolio of teaching materials, lesson plans, EMI materials that they have adapted, handouts, for example, or worksheets that they've developed for use with their students. So it's very, very focused on the context, the actual classroom or virtual classroom in which these teacher trainees or student teachers are operating. And then we have policy and curriculum of EMI. This is our second unit. And here we look at bilingual language policy. We look at the best ways of making the most of your curriculum. So looking at the curriculum that you're teaching and looking at different ways of exploiting that, how to develop particular materials that would get the message across easier, which would make it easier for your students to assimilate the subject knowledge that you're giving them. We look at things like native speakerism. In recent years, there has been a major debate going on in the field of international language education, which is about the role of the native and the non-native teacher. And I know that in many contexts, it's quite common for native speakers from English-speaking countries to be hired as teachers. There are a lot of issues around that. And it has been argued that, in fact, the best way to develop bilingual education systems really is to develop the capacities of the non-native teachers, in other words, the local teachers. Really, that's considered nowadays to be a much more sustainable approach. Anyway, these are the issues that some of the issues that we discussed in the unit. And assessment for that is by means of a written reflection. So we get the participants to reflect upon EMI policy or curriculum in their particular context in a critical kind of way. Again, it's all focused on the environment in which you are working. Okay. Third unit is bilingualism, multilingualism, and plurilingualism. Of course, we look at the relationship between bilingualism, bilingual education, and also the way that learners and teachers think about that experience and the way that they think about their learning. Okay, I mean, bilingual education systems are very common. However, they are very variable in terms of their success rates. Okay, and we look at some of the more successful models and figure out why learning seems to be more effective in those particular environments. We look at classroom discourse, which includes things like translanguaging. So there's a re-evaluation of the use of the local language, the mother tongue, within the EMI classroom in recent years. And so we reflect upon that literature, that kind of research. And of course, we look at not just speaking, but writing in two languages, okay, biliteracy, multiliteracies, and multimodalities, because obviously we work in a very highly technologized environment nowadays with heavy use of video and various web-based resources. So we have to consider this whole aspect of education in relation to EMI as well. Assessment, again, is in terms of a written reflection, and where what we want people to do is to consider how theories and research can inform the learning and communication in their particular context. And also we have a unit on intercultural communication and learning, because EMI is an intercultural experience. You are engaging with another culture when you teach through the medium of English. And this, of course, includes things like stereotyping and the way that we think and talk and write about other cultures. It covers things like cultural representations in teaching materials. So if you happen to be using textbooks from an English-speaking country, for example, and things like non-verbal communication in the classroom, this kind of thing. This is assessed by a case study. Okay, again, not by an essay, but by a practice-based, a classroom-based, or institutionally based case study of intercultural communication and learning. How do we teach these units? Well, we teach them in a variety of ways, basically using something that we've come to call the Bath Blend. It's a blended learning approach, which we've developed basically over the years. And yeah, we have, I mean, one major way in which we have taught our courses in the past has been study centres. And these can be in country, in which case members of staff go out to a particular country and teach there for 4 or 5 days, or a course or a unit is taught in 4 or 5 days. Or alternatively, this can take place online. And of course, this has been happening more commonly in the last year because of the pandemic, of course. And of course, everything that we do is mediated through the virtual learning environment. So pre-recorded videos and online seminars and Moodle discussion forums, online discussions, this kind of thing. These are integral to our approach. We have teacher training workshops. Again, everything is very focused on pedagogy and application of what is learnt. I say very, very practice-based. Live online interactive lectures. So yeah, lectures that are taught, of course, online, but we do emphasize, I mean, it's not about somebody just talking to you for an hour or two. They're very definitely interactive lectures with discussions and tasks to do. Seminars which may take place in person, or they may be run remotely. We're doing both of these things. One-to-one tutorials, these being a feature of British higher education. We do that at Bath, as in other places. And of course, one of the questions that people will have is, well, what are the language requirements for this? Well, generally, and this is for our master's programs, but also generally for our CPD activities, we're looking for an IELTS 6.5 with no less than 6 in the other components, or equivalent scores in the Pearson test or TOEFL. Now, I realize that these may seem quite high for some educators, these requirements. Our thinking behind this is, if you want to develop a bilingual education system, if you want bilingual learners, then you need to be moving towards a situation where educators are also bilingual, yeah, at least to take the kind of courses that we're talking about here. But of course, we do support the language side of things, the academic writing and reading side of things. So of course we can provide language improvement courses, but we also have academic study skills support specifically for our EMI courses, and these include things like critical reading and note-taking, critical writing, right, the use of the writer's voice, effective use of sources, library sources, online sources, and so on. Okay, so a fully supported study skills package to go with the units of study that we provide. Okay, I'm going to stop there. So coming up is part 2 of these presentations from the University of Bath, and I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Dr. Samantha Curl, and I believe she's going to be talking about research and its applications for CPD in the area of EMI. I thank you for your attention.